Okay, right now, ladies and gentlemen, our moderators and the speakers for the first session of today are ready on the stage. Please welcome them on stage once again.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to APRA conference. I'm very excited to moderate the first session of this great event. The theme of the first session is AI in international arbitration. So it is needless to say, but we have all, over the past decades, we have experienced many changes due to the advancement of new technology. It made us change the way we make friends, how we communicate with our family. Everything has changed, not only in life, but also in work. So I started practicing international arbitration in 2007. And the way we practiced around that time is quite different from how we do it today, these days. E-discovery, e-submissions, and metadata, and how to manage that metadata, how to strategize our case because of that metadata, how to deal with these cases. Everything has changed massively. So today we are here with these marvelous panelists to discuss, because of the advancement of technology and AI, where do we stand today and what to expect tomorrow. I'm Simin Lee, partner at Shin & Kim, based in Seoul, Korea. And to my immediate left is Mr. Robert Pei. I'm talking about new technology, and I'm just reading off some papers. So Mr. Robert Pei is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and a member of the arbitration chambers in Hong Kong and London. He was in private practice with major international law firms for over 2 decades. And the chambers recommended him as a top flight lawyer. And when I first saw this, I thought it was top fight lawyer. So I thought it was a very interesting person to invite. But yeah, still good. Top flight lawyer is still good. And they have also quoted that he is the highest level of respect in the market. The Financial Times identified him as one of the most innovative lawyers in Asia. And and he has been an independent arbitrator and mediator since 2017. And to Robert's immediate left is Ronald. And Ronald is a partner in the Hong Kong office and head of dispute resolution in Asia of Adlershaw Art Hong Kong LLP. He concentrates his practice in all areas of dispute resolution, specializing in China practice, involving all sorts of matters. Ronald is qualified as a solicitor in Hong Kong, England, and Wales and Australia. And he's also a fellow member of the Hong Kong Institute of Arbitrators. And because we were talking about new technology, so I thought I would Google him to see what the newspapers would talk about him. And the newspaper was quoting him to be, Ronald is an impressive lawyer who brings in to the firm vast international arbitration knowledge and experience, in particular having conducted many arbitration in Hong Kong, Singapore, London, and the United States and Australia. I asked him to give me some sources, something interesting about him, but I think he can do it himself while he's presenting. To his left is Mr. Tobias Strecker. Toby is a lecturer at King's College in London, at Humboldt University in Berlin, teaching courses on international arbitration, international commercial law, negotiation, and German law. And at the same time, Toby is a lawyer at Bodenheimer Herzberg. I learned German many years ago, but my pronunciation, hope it worked. Yes, and he works a German boutique firm focusing on international commercial disputes. What is interesting about him is that when he was a student, university at he worked in a small team that established the largest German social online network at that time. Schülervisi. Is that the right? Yes. Yes, very interesting, very interesting. And after graduating in 2011, he completed his traineeship in Berlin, Stuttgart, and New York. And now he's practicing, and also he has joined King's College London as a lecturer. To his left is Mr. Shinichiro Abe. And Mr. Abe is one of the Japan's leading specialists in Japanese and international corporate restructuring, and also domestic commercial transaction and domestic and international arbitration. And he have contributed to numerous publications, and including interaction between arbitral tribunals seated in Japan and Japanese courts, recent trends in Japanese ADR for restructuring insolvent business. All of these things were published in 2019, so you can imagine how intellectual and diligent he can be. And finally, Wangzawar Wangziri. I've seen Warthon many times in other events. But at those events, we only sang together and drank together, so I never seen him quite serious before, but I kid you not that he is a serious lawyer. And he's a partner at Herbert Smith Freehills, and he specializes in advising. He is admitted to practice in 2004, received a bachelor's degree in law, first class honor from Chulalongkorn University. And he's qualified as a Thai barrister at law and is a current member of the Thai Bar Association. Varathon has been consistently ranked as one of the most recommended and highly regarded dispute resolution in Thailand by Legal 500 and Who's Who Legal. Yes. So starting with Robert. So Robert will be introduction to AI and cover the question of whether it would mark the end of lawyers. That's a serious subject. Yes.
Thank you, Seung-min. So I'm going to set the scene a little bit, and then I will hand over to my colleagues to go into a bit more detail. And I wanted to start by asking you some questions. So who said this and when? What I would really like to do is have this as a quiz and give you the answers later. But in the interest of time, I'm going to give you the answers. So firstly, I think there is a world market for about 5 computers. Who said that and when? Well, I was surprised to discover that it was the chairman of IBM, and he said that in 1943. Thankfully, he proved himself wrong. Second quote, computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. So who said that and when? Well, that was a highly respected journal called Popular Mechanics, and that was in 1949, so still quite a while ago. And then the third quote, there's no reason that anyone would want a computer in their home. So there's someone who thought computers were all about the workplace. You wouldn't take a computer and have it at home. Who do you think said that and when? Well, that was the founder and chairman of Digital Equipment Corporation. And he was speaking in 1977. So not that long ago. I was even born in 1977, so I could almost remember this chap, Ken Olsen. Now, unsurprisingly, his company got taken over. It hit some financial distress. Perhaps he wasn't thinking quite right. It got taken over by Compaq, and they were then taken over themselves or merged with Hewlett-Packard. But I think that some of their products, Digital Equipment Corporation's products, are still available via Hewlett-Packard. So obviously those examples show our ability, even as experts as these people were, our ability to underestimate the impact and the likely effect of technology. So moving on to someone who had a rather more positive view, and this is Ray Kurzweil, who is known as a futurist. He said, as I've quoted there, as exponential growth continues to accelerate into the first half of the 21st century, it will appear to explode into infinity, at least from the limited and linear perspective of contemporary humans. And I've been trying to work out when he said that, and as far as I can tell, that was in 1990. Since then, he's gone on to do an analysis of his own predictions. And he says that out of 108 predictions he's made, 89 of them have come true. So he obviously believes he has a track record of being pretty accurate when it comes to this stuff. And he's famous for his curve, which I've put up there. And I don't know how well you can read it, but it's very interesting. So he, among other things, he looked at the years by when $1,000 of computation from a computer would equal or already have equaled the intelligence of various things. So he said that in 2001, it would be equal to one insect brain. In 2010, equal to one mouse brain. And in 2020, equal to one human brain. But he then goes on to say that by 2050, it will be equal to all human brains. And that's just $1,000 worth of computing. And this guy certainly views himself as being very accurate with his predictions, so we should probably pay attention. Now, jumping forward slightly, the book Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark was recommended to me. I met with a couple of guys who are experts in this field, and they said that's a very good starting point, this book Life 3.0. That was published in 2017, and I looked for reviews of the book, and this review I thought was very telling, and this appeared in the Guardian newspaper in the UK. If you hear a scenario about the world in 2050, and it sounds like science fiction, it's probably wrong. But if you hear a scenario about the world in 2050, and it does not sound like science fiction, then it's certainly wrong. So really emphasizing that it's very hard for us to imagine how things are going to be, and highlighting the potential that artificial intelligence offers. So I met with an expert on machine learning, and he realized that I was not an expert. So he gave me some very simple analogies. He told me that machine learning is basically like training a dog. So you'll have your little puppy, you'll give it treats for sitting when you tell it to sit. And you'll start doing that at home, and then you'll take him out. You'll take him on the street, and you'll try, this is a new scenario for your puppy, but again, if he sits when he's told to sit, you'll give him a treat. And then you might take him somewhere else. You might take him to a bar or somewhere like that could be confusing for him. But again, when he sits and does as he's told, you give him the treat. And this expert told me that machine learning is very similar to that. It's all about throwing a lot of data, gathering data and throwing it together and then using it to teach. So he also reminded me of this game, Breakout, game that was popular in the 1980s. Looks fairly basic now compared with the computer games that our children would be playing. And this is a game where you use a bat to hit that ball up and knock tiles out above. And very early on, some scientists were using training a computer to play this game, and initially found it incredibly frustrating. But they gave it a treat. They taught it that it had to get a high score. And the breakthrough moment was when this machine learnt that the best way to get a high score was to work your way up and get behind the top layer of tiles there and then bounce around at the top very quickly. And the machine learnt to do this, and that was a massive breakthrough. And that was when people started to understand the potential that artificial intelligence offered. So nowadays, we're seeing it in all kinds of different fields. So we've got optical recognition. It's capable of reading words. You may find that you're often nowadays doing live chat. So the other day, I was wanting to make a bank transfer and encountered some problems when I was online. And I ended up doing some live chat. And it culminated in my being told that the transfer I was trying to make was too big, and I had to go into a branch of the bank to make the transfer, which was pretty irritating. But a lot of that live chat now is actually not a real person, it's a chat bot. So these things are used to dealing with questions, they're trained. So for example, you can use a chat bot even in the context of preparing a will. I'm told that there are something like, I think it was 5,000 different issues that have to be looked at in drafting a will, but they're all fairly predictable if you've done it enough times, and so you can use a chat bot for that. Or even for booking an appointment to have your hair cut. Apparently there are now some very progressive hairdressers who will use a chat bot when you're booking your hair appointment. Now there's also voice recognition. And that's come a long way. I mean, we all remember the days when you would talk into your phone or whatever device it was you were using in the hope that it would be able to speak or record what you're saying and convert that into words. And half the time you'd get back some gobbledygook that didn't make any sense. But voice recognition has come really far now, and it can recognize different speakers. And that means it can be used for preparing hearing transcripts and things of that nature. And there's also mood recognition, both of written text and spoken words. So computers now can pick up. If someone suddenly raises their voice, the computer can understand that that may be done in anger. It can also understand visual effects. So sometimes if someone moves in a certain way or is moving aggressively, it will recognize that. And I'm told there are now fast food restaurants that are using this. And they will look at the customer, work out if the customer's in a bad mood, and if so, offer the person ice cream. So apparently this technology is already being used in that way. So does that mean the end of lawyers? And I've got there, obviously, some vinyl records and a fountain pen. And we all thought it was the end of those. But of course, we've seen vinyl records making a comeback. So sales of vinyl records have gone up 5 times in the last 5 years. And sales of fountain pens are also making a big comeback. So there's something good about those things that people still like, even in this era of technology. And we lawyers need to try and learn in a similar way. So of course, The End of Lawyers is a famous book by Richard Susskind. And when it came out in 2008, I was a partner of a California origin law firm, and our chairman considered himself fairly go-ahead and on the ball. And when we went over to California for our annual partners meeting, he gave all of the partners a copy of this book, The End of Lawyers. And I still have my copy. I have to say I hadn't read it that much, but when I was preparing for this, I did read it. And it is an interesting read, even now, 12 years later. And the challenge that Richard Susskind lays down for lawyers is to look at their current workload and work out what can be undertaken more quickly, more cheaply, more efficiently, and to a higher quality by using different methods of working. And of course, one of the factors to be taken into account is using technology to do those things and be more efficient. So I think Susskind was saying basically it's not the end of lawyers, but it's the end of certain lawyers. There's a lot of work that now is being commoditized, and clients will not pay for that. So you need to, as a lawyer, to be very thoughtful as to the kind of work you're doing and how you do it. So I've got a couple more slides, but I'm conscious that my time is running up and I don't want to cut into the others. And I know later Seung-Min's going to ask us some questions, so I'll save these for later. Thank you. And I just thank these people I met with who gave me some background on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. So this might be overlapping a little bit with what Toby would be covering, but how, in your opinion, how well is international arbitration doing in terms of making use of this technology? Robert?
So the question is me. Sorry. What I would say is not as well as it could be done so far. So, I mean, if you look at transcripts, for example, most transcripts are still prepared by humans. And humans will have human issues. So I've been in a hearing before where the transcriber had to rush off because of a family crisis, and the whole hearing ground to a halt, and we had to wait for a replacement transcriber to arrive. Similarly, arbitrators, we too are subject to human issues. I've been in a hearing before where one of my co-arbitrators started to vomit profusely. And this was somewhat shocking to us. And he was very calm, actually, but he excused himself. And he was the presiding arbitrator. And he asked us to continue and said that he would review the transcripts every day. And he actually had to go to hospital and was hospitalized for a few days. But he was a very conscientious person, and he did read and review the transcripts from hospital, and he did provide input. But again, it highlights some human frailties that can come into play. And my own experience is that so far I don't think we are using technology as much as we could and should. But I think my colleagues will talk a lot more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, so Ronald is going to talk more about that by sharing his experience in drafting the new online dispute resolution rules. And I have to say that he didn't get any compensation or paid or sponsored by any of these online dispute resolution institutions, right?
No, that's why I'm not doing any selling for them, for the online institutions. Since I'll be sitting here all day today and all day tomorrow, I've decided to stand up and walk over there and do the presentations. If my slides is up. Okay. Now, forget about that. Okay, just my sales pitch. I thought, why put up this photo? The reason is that only a couple of days ago, I instructed a counsel, a barrister, to go to court. When I first started my legal career some 30 years ago, as a young chap, I will be carrying documents, bundles, both hands like that, to go up to court. And now, this counsel took 5 iPads. I said, why 5 iPads? Got one in front of him and a couple on the left and right. He said, one is for my submissions. One is for the claimant's bundle. One is for the defendant's bundle. One are for the cases. And I said, what's the other one? The other one is to record the process. That's what it is. So instead of carrying bundles of documents, he literally put up 5 iPads right in front of him. Like that, and they start touching the screen. And he'll be referring to the judge, my lord, can you please refer to page 85 of bundle 12? So the judge will take up bundle 12, whilst he just pressed bundle 12, page 75. The pages comes up much faster. So I decided to be a bit cyber and put up this photo there. Now, I've been asked by, as Seung-Min has said, by some online dispute institutions. For Hong Kong, it is a thing called EBRAM, Electronic Business Related Arbitration Mediation, to look into the online rules. Okay, and on top of that, they will incorporate the APEC online rules, which I'm looking at as well. I think my good friend Yoshi, somewhere down there, is over there, okay, is chairing this committee. Now, I came across certain things which is somewhat different to the normal rules. So I'm going to talk about one of the definition, AI versus online platform. Are we talking about online platform? Are we talking about artificial intelligence? Quite different, okay? How does it impact on the arbitration mediation rules in the future? So I took it out from Wikipedia. If you type artificial intelligence, that is the first definition you'll get. Okay, nothing fancy. It's just artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer program or a machine to think and learn. Okay, think and learn. Okay, it is also a field of study which tries to make computers smart. So you think and learn. Okay, are we talking about leaving the decisions to the AI, or are we simply talking about making our lives easier and cheaper, for that matter, for online disputes? So there are types of AI, reactive machines. Okay, when I say hi, okay, hopefully you will say hi to me. That's reactive. Okay, limited memories, theory of minds, self-awareness. So it acts like a human. And it involves intelligence. As I said, by intelligence, it means reactive, resembles human mind. Okay, it has decision-making. This is a decision-making process. Now, which is important. I think, as Robert just said, you need a massive amount of data, okay, to make any decision. 2 nights ago, okay, before I came over to Bangkok, I was watching the news. The news actually is an invention talked about in Korea. Okay, in Seoul, they are interviewing people by AI. Okay, and they are saying that how to cheat. Okay, the interview. How do you cheat the interview? What does AI looking at when they're interviewing people? So people don't have to go to office. You can sit at your room and do the interview. And it comes to that. Okay, it comes to that. If you smile a lot, okay, AI will give you points, okay, and you'll be employed easier. So why smile a lot, okay, and you don't smile like that. AI, according to that program, it actually separates your face into 4 sections. You have to smile in a more central sense, okay, and then you score a point. So that's one of the ways to cheat an AI interviewer. Okay, so AI is coming. Let's start with that. Okay, and it is being used in other things. Now, as compared to the AI, so I've got this section on AI versus online platform. Okay, now online platform is very much different to AI. AI talk about thinking, decisions. Online is to make our life easier. So it provides a e-platform, e-filing, e-storage, e-discovery, everything starts with an E, okay? Obviously, everything that starts with an E is rather expensive, okay? If you ask a e-discovery agent to do your discovery, you actually pay. I actually did pay quite a sum of money. No, not I, my clients did, okay? Does it help? Yes, it does. Does it relieve a lawyer's job? Okay, yes, it does. Does it take over a lawyer's job? No, it doesn't. Okay, because the lawyers still have to look at it. Video conferencing facilities, but minimal AI involvement. So when I was asked to look into the rules, the first question I asked was, is it AI or is it just online this platform that makes our life easier? I think as fellow practitioners here, what does the client first ask? When they say, hey, I have a case. Okay, they ask the lawyer, apart from giving the facts of the case to the lawyer, I think the next question, if not even before that, is, can you give me a quotation? How much does it cost? Okay, how much does the arbitrators cost? How much is the whole process cost? Okay, this obviously, the online platform reduces this cost. Now, funny enough, it's also couple of months ago, we were interviewing for trainees. And we recruited some trainees, and we were talking about it. Anyone, I think, at my age is over half a century, I will tell you that. Okay, we were using a dictaphone. Anyone knows a dictaphone, what a dictaphone is? You start dictating and give the tape out. My junior doesn't know what a dictaphone is. My junior doesn't even need a secretary. You just type it out herself. Okay, faster. Okay, that's the mentalities between us and the next generation. So pens, now typewriters, dictaphones, tablets. Okay, so even many, now, my company gave me this. I can access my office documents, anything I can see on my computer in the office, just like that, so long as I have Wi-Fi or data connections. If I lost this one, everything will be wiped out within 1 minute for security reasons. Okay, so you don't have to be, this is the lifestyle we are getting used to. This is online. So how does it impact? Okay, now for many Asian countries, we talk about negotiations, mediations, arbitration. Looking at how we're doing for time. Okay. Mediations, arbitrations, and this is a mixture of the above. One of the, I'm not selling any APAC rules or whatever, is to mix all this together. Negotiations, mediations, arbitration. It is part of the Asian culture. Obviously, for negotiations, no AI is involved, or not even online, maybe a video conferencing facilities. But once you're talking into mediation, which I said is one of the Asian things, okay? I'm from Hong Kong, I'm a Chinese, and many Asian countries is, when I first started my career, we talk about, hey, let's go and settle. Let's go and talk about settlement first before we commence anything. So appointment of mediators, okay. Can AI do it? I suppose yes, if there's sufficient data. Now, in the event of challenge, can any artificial intelligence platform, okay, resolve the differences? Yes, provided that there are sufficient information. Can mediation be performed by AI mediators? Now, I think we have not reached that part yet. Okay, but I think sooner or later we will. And e-filing, e-storage, we do have already. But for arbitration, now, if you think about this way, you commence an arbitration by notice of appointment. Okay, obviously, there must be some human involvement. But once you're talking about the number of arbitrators, the appointment of arbitrators, yes, there can be AI involvement as well, provided that, as I said, there are sufficient information. Now, if you venture into the final hearing, okay, let's assume that, okay, I'm talking about from the common law lawyer sense, and that there are questions being asked, they're cross-examining the witness, someone objects. Who is dealing with the objection? Can AI deal with this? I suppose yes, AI is interviewing people, but if you ask me, we are not there yet, okay? So, but it is a step. We are now in the middle step before moving into a pure AI. It's still in the development stage. AI, will it take over the institutional decisions? Okay, can there be an emergency arbitrators, etc.? Now, I think we are at the stage of the online platform. Okay, it's like used to be pens, now dictaphones, now desktop, etc. Okay, so many of the rules now.
One more minute.
One more minute. Okay, it's about online platforms. So all conducted electronically. Okay, but there are still human involvements. Now, certain things can be done. For example, procedural orders. It can be done through electronically prepared by not so much as AI, but prepared electronically, okay, because procedural orders are somewhat standard, if you can put it like that. But then there will also be involvement as well, video conferencing, okay. No real AI involvement. AI requires a good filtering mechanism. It has to have data. Okay, online doesn't need data. Online is a more facilitative process. So when I start drafting the rules, the first thing I asked was, is it AI or online? Okay, obviously it is more online than AI because we have not reached that part yet. But as in online, okay, so everything, when I draft the rules, most of the impact comes in how to serve documents, how to upload documents, how to make it secure, etc., etc. Okay. Now, it is still in process. Some of the rest in draft. APAC rules are in process. So I think somehow or the other, they'll do a launch someday, okay, in the next couple of months. But for the future, okay, online is here. Online is just here. AI will be here. Okay, many people says, anyone is a Spider-Man and fans? I'm a Spider-Man fan. If you look at the latest Spider-Man movies, they've got a glasses called Edith. Even that I'm the hero from Tony Stark. Okay, press everyone's information, it's on the screen, on the glasses. Is it future? No. Google glasses have that. Okay, Google glasses can probably do that now, obviously, if they can produce it. So it is not there yet, but it is definitely not far away. As some of my juniors will tell me, embrace the future, okay, because AI is coming and we are at the online dispute resolution stage. Once that matures and AI matures, that will be the next step forward. So that's my presentation. My apologies to my colleagues, which I think I've slightly overrun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronald. And also thank you so much as a Korean for sharing the tip of how to cheat an AI in interviews in Korea. So it will be very useful if I so you just mentioned that everything which starts with an E it tends to be expensive. But at the same time, if we adopt this system, that it also can have an aspect of reducing the cost. So when you mention any online mechanism to your client, what is the immediate reaction, and what do you think there is any specific area that you would particularly recommend this to?
Yes, let's take it to the extreme. One of my clients asked me.
And you have 1 minute for that.
Okay, I don't need 1 minute for that to be exact. One of my clients actually asked me, can you do me a comparison of the quotation of the time you spent if I do not involve the e-discovery, and how much does it involve, what's the quotation for a e-discovery? So actually clients do look at the comparisons. Okay, obviously many don't, but my usual comments to the clients is that it facilitates our job, it makes our job more efficient, it makes our life easier, it makes me happier, and that's why it makes you happier as a client as well. So clients are embracing e-discovery, despite at the moment that the cost, I would say, is not expensive but not cheap, let's put it this way, but they're embracing it.
Thank you so much. Now, Toby, so you're going to talk about AI in general and also AI in international arbitration. And when I sent you an email, just share something interesting about yourself. You said that as a child you thought cats were female dogs, and to be honest, I didn't really think that was that interesting. But well, I'm just sharing this anyway. Thank you.
I thought you said we should share something funny about us. I thought it was rather funny than interesting. But maybe once I get into my presentation, you will understand why that was the fact that I have picked. I'm still waiting for my presentation to come up, but so long I can tell you I'm very excited to give a presentation on specific that talk. I think when I discuss with my friends what are the challenges that we are facing in the future and in the years to come. Probably there are two predominant topics that pop up these days. The one is, what does AI do to our future? Will it make us redundant? Will it replace our jobs? And the other one, obviously, being how can we still exist in 20 to 30 years if Harry and Meghan are not in the Buckingham Palace anymore? So I will obviously focus on the first of the two issues, artificial intelligence, in particular in international arbitration. What will it do to it? Will the future look somewhat like that we have robot judges and for international arbitration, maybe an international arbitration tribunal could look somewhat like that. Here are the points that I want to go through. First of all, take a brief look at what is the status quo in international arbitration, what are the tools that we do use, is it artificial intelligence? For that we need a definition of artificial intelligence, what is it actually? And then we can go through the 3 points, how can artificial intelligence be used to assist lawyers and practitioners, to assist arbitrators, or is it even possible that we think of something like artificial arbitrators? And lastly, maybe even arbitral institutions could make use of artificial intelligence to the extent they are not already doing that. First of all, the status quo, I don't think I have to spend much time on that. You all know what tools you are using. We are using for communication, if we want to call that artificial intelligence, emails and fax. Emails, we think it's a given, but I can tell you that in Germany, fax is still the predominant way of communicating with courts, and they're just in the process of preparing to accept emails with digital signatures. We're using video conferencing, we're using cloud services. For research, we use databases. Some call themselves now smart databases because they do use AI and deep learning to find better results. Some of us use decision trees. It's not everybody's liking. Some think it's helpful, some think it's not. And in a procedure, we already discussed that e-discovery for document review, cloud-based case management systems, and then smart contracts is maybe rather a special interest that not many of us are involved in. So when we ask ourselves, is that artificial intelligence? We need a definition of artificial intelligence. We heard the first one already. This is also on Wikipedia, intelligent agents. Any device that perceives its environment and takes actions that maximize its enhance of successfully achieving its goal. Other definitions, the second and the latter one, make reference to human intelligence, the last one being making a machine behave in ways that would be called intelligent if a human were behaving so. The problem is that our understanding of what we perceive as intelligent in a machine changes over the time. This has been described by a journalist as a problem that proponents of AI regularly face is this: when we know how a machine does something intelligent, it ceases to be regarded as intelligent. If I beat the world's chess champion, as a computer did in 1997, I'd be regarded as highly bright. But once a computer could achieve that, we didn't think of that as artificial intelligence anymore. Our definition of artificial intelligence changes with the time. Maybe 30 years ago, we thought a programmable pocket calculator would be intelligent. Now we don't. So the best definition that I have found, AI is anything that has not been done yet, or at least that we are in the process of developing. And what are we currently in the process of developing? Here's a chart that maybe puts a little bit of a timeline on what AI could do. We have had computers since the 40s, and we already called it artificial intelligence, but what came later was machine learning, and now really the revolution came maybe with 2010 or 2015, where we had systems that made deep learning really work. The start of computing is conditional statements, and as lawyers we're very familiar with conditional statements. We tell a computer, and basically any programming languages is designed like that, if a certain condition is fulfilled or if other conditions are fulfilled, then a certain consequence should appear. If we want to teach a computer how to distinguish a cat from a dog, and actually the same could work for a man and a woman, how do we teach a computer to do that? We could do that with conditional statements. For example, we tell it that if there are a bunch of black pixels in a certain shape concentrating together, then that's a certain anchor point. It should find such anchor points in the picture and then compare the relationships between the distances of these anchor points. So here we could maybe find out, or we would have to know that maybe a dog has a longer nose than a cat and so on. We would tell that computer, we would put that into our statement, we would design a rule to distinguish a cat from a dog. The problem here is we would have to know how are they different. Maybe for cats and dogs, that's not so difficult. If we think about it a little bit, then we can manage that. However, other tasks may not be so easy. For example, distinguishing cats from ice cream or dogs from cupcakes. We immediately recognize which one is a dog and which one is a cupcake, but we don't know how. And we don't know how to tell a computer. So what we can do here is that in the first step, we could start by not telling the computer the rule. We just design certain parameters and tell the computer to find the parameters itself. That works in this model. That would be great because the computer could even tell us what the rule is. It doesn't work very well with this one here. We would tell the computer to even find the parameters that it has to compare itself. So we just put in a picture of a cat. We create several layers of vectors that the software designs, and all we tell the software is it a cat or is it an ice cream, and the rest, the rule is designed by the software. It works great. It works much better than what we had before, but it comes with a few problems, and one of them is, and we'll come back to that, we don't always know what the rule is that the computer creates. It's often a black box, and we don't know why it and with which criteria it distinguishes the ice cream from the cat. So how can we use AI, or how are we already making use of AI? And when I say AI now, I mean deep learning, what I have just described. Some describe other things as artificial intelligence. What deep learning is great in is pattern recognition. And that is what we can use in the legal industry. For example, for legal research, deep learning systems can recognize certain patterns in judgments. For example, in contracts, we have plenty of software that we can train. And if we want to find a merger clause or any specific clause in a contract, it can recognize these clauses no matter the wording. In legal research, we are already using that. Several tools have implemented such tools, document review and e-discovery, especially for M&A transactions. There's a plethora of tools that we can use, but also for document production. Some have now suggested that also the drafting of contracts, or even with regard to arbitration, that arbitration agreements could in the future be drafted by artificial intelligence. I'm not so sure about it. I tell my students that the drafting of an arbitration agreement in 90% of the cases should not involve much more than the three keys, Control, C, and V, and maybe you have to put in a place of arbitration. And if you have a complex arbitration clause, then probably AI is not the right tool, because then it's a unique tool and you need large data sets in order to achieve that. Can submissions be written by artificial intelligence? What it already does, we do have systems where they assist us in identifying cases, especially in jurisdictions that are case law heavy. It can help us identify other cases. Can it draft our submissions? There have been attempts doing that, but at the moment the systems are not very good in drafting text. They can draft single clauses, but not longer texts. And then outcome prediction, that is something that many people have high hopes in. Outcome prediction could either help the client with its decision, should I file a claim or should I not? Will I win or will I lose? Help a third-party funder with its decision, should I finance the claim? And if we go one step further, we could even say, if the software would be so good to predict the outcome of a case, then why not have the software decide? What do we need the judge for if the software already knows what it would do? So that goes hand in hand with the question, how can it assist arbitrators or even replace arbitrators? There have been 2 studies in recent years that had made many people very hopeful. Aletras and his colleagues, he has fed his system with 584 decisions of the European Court on Human Rights, decisions on Articles 3, 6, and 8, and claimed that the computer could predict the outcome of the case, outcome meaning was there a violation of the article or was there none, in 79% of the cases. Katz and his colleagues made a little bit later a similar study where he fed 240 different features of US Supreme Court judgments. They can be found on the Supreme Court database from 28,000 cases that range over almost 200 years, and claimed that in 71.9 of the cases, individual judges' decisions could be predicted by the software, and even in a little bit more than 70 cases, it could even predict whether the court would affirm or reverse the decision. So that could make us very hopeful that maybe in the future that is what arbitrators would look like. However, I have my doubts. If we look deeper into these studies, we will see that the data that has been fed to the system is something that we are typically not aware of at the outset of a dispute. What has been fed in the European Court of Human Rights cases was basically the decision itself, including the statement of the facts, including the procedural history. It was not entirely clear of even the legal reasoning. There's a legal assessment in these decisions whether that was fed or not, but that is typically information that is only available at a very, very late stage, and maybe judges already draft the facts matching with their later judgment. So probably that is not something that we can use at any time in the future in order to actually predict the outcome at an early stage. Similar thing is true for the US Supreme Court decisions. Here, information was fed that is often only available at a very late stage. So we're facing a few problems when it comes to outcomes prediction. Machine learning is only as good as the input data, as we have already seen. Decision making is based on fact patterns and needs large data volume available, especially for non-binary decisions. In international arbitration, we typically don't have large volumes of data. Even larger institutions have 1,000 to 2,000 cases a year, and they range over a large area of topics. We have a lack of input data, especially in international arbitration. Machine learning generally perpetuates the patterns that it finds, meaning that if for a long time we had decisions that we maybe at some point don't agree anymore, or there was a change of law, the machine will not automatically necessarily recognize that. Laws and opinions may change over time. We have the black box problem that we often don't understand why the software decides in a certain way, and maybe there are biases enshrined in the decision-making of the software that we can't easily identify. And something that some people claim is we're not ready yet to trust a machine with making decisions. One more minute?
No. Sorry, we're really running out of time. One more minute.
Okay, I'll try it in half a minute. I think there are chances to it. AI is getting better. It's learning to explain its decisions. And I think the chances for AI lie especially not in the broad field of international arbitration overall. It will certainly not replace arbitrators, but I think in small fields, especially in combination with online arbitration, where we have specific cases, for example, cases in sales law, and where we do already know some of the factors that are involved in the case, that here AI has a great future. And I think I can close with that.
Thank you so much. Such a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. Well, actually, there is a follow-up question, but I can just give you 10 seconds to answer. So you just mentioned that all the brilliance of the deep learning and the AI, but the problem you just suggested was that we don't know how they come up with these conclusions and the rules that they create internally. So do you think that we should teach future lawyers how to write coding? Like, would that in 30 minutes, would you be able in 30 seconds?
Well, first of all, I think learning how to code is always good for lawyers because both are very related, and I think learning how to code also teaches you to be better in applying the law. I don't think it will help understanding how artificial intelligence renders its decision because it's simply a technical problem that also computer scientists cannot solve, but we are in a process of developing software that can understand software.
Thank you so much. I wish we had a lot of more time so that we can just go through all the presentations sufficiently. But also moving on to, so Mr. Abe, So what is online arbitration and what is the future of AI usage, in your opinion, and Robo Arbitrate? And what is the issue for Robo Arbitrator? Would you be able to?
Thank you. You may know, two gentlemen panelists from common law countries give us a big picture about the AI. And from German, Toby always talk about definition, like German style. And Japanese, we are very good at assembling, summarize, like old Walkman. And you may know, I use not the iPhone, Huawei, but Huawei, 60% of the small parts are made in Japan. So we are good at assembling. So AI future, probably 3 of them have already talked about this issue. And I summarize and put a little bit bigger, further issue. So I talk about online arbitration, especially Robo arbitrators, whether Robo arbitrator is okay or not. So e-filing, e-hearing, and e-arbitration award, they have already talked. And especially e-arbitration award, we think about recognized and enforced by the relevant jurisdiction. This is a big issue. If the party who lose a case go to court and set aside, get a set aside decision, what happens next? I skip this. And example on national laws. To allow e-arbitration. In the Netherlands, an arbitral award may be made and signed electronically. And in the UK and in Switzerland, also, the parties are free to agree on the form of an award. So, at least 3 countries allow AI arbitration award, I would say. And how do I use AI technology now, and how will we be using it in the near future? Automatic translation, text processing, etc., etc. They have already talked. So I skip this one. And example of online arbitration. As you may know, online arbitration is a well-known method of dispute resolution of internet domain name disputes. So WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, is one of the providers which resolve disputes under the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy. And in the future, blockchain arbitration for smart contracts may be created. And we already have such a code legit and Kleros. I don't know the exact meaning or exact website, but this is already done. Done means make. And regarding what is Robo Arbitrator? What is Robo Arbitrator? Most national laws only permit a natural person arbitrator, not Robo Arbitrator, not robots or other artificial intelligence. Having said that, if human arbitrators were assisted by AI, this would make the arbitrator process more efficient and less costly. At the ODR Forum 2019, Dr. Anu Lee, Chinese, spoke of the potential of AI in dispute resolution, particularly in the area of small value cross-border matters. To paraphrase, Dr. Lee says, robots will soon be able to speak multiple languages, know laws of different jurisdictions, and analyze a large volume of court decisions. As Toby mentioned last, US Supreme Court also mentioned about this issue. This seems very promising for the future of arbitration using Robo Arbitrator. But there are big issues, I would say. The first issue I would like to discuss is ethics. Do you think robo mechanisms can act ethically? As you can understand, it is key for the success of arbitrary institutions that users can trust that process will be ethical. This trust is necessary to convince losing party to accept the award without seeking to set aside the award through the courts, as I mentioned. And the public policy. Public policy differs country to country, and only human beings can examine whether or not the award is against public policy in a specific jurisdiction. The second issue is fairness. The question here is, can machines be acted fairly? This includes such issues as whether the party can easily access data, whether the parties can equally informed about the facts and events during the case procedure, and transparency and non-discrimination. The third is trust. Can AI be trustworthy? This bears upon the quality of decision, meaning accountability, reliability, etc., etc. Oh, sorry. The fourth is manipulation. This is also a big issue, I would say. For example, this might happen where the government of a country impedes fair decision by manipulating the system. As Toby said, technology is going up and become very precisely. But how is a manipulation from the government or from other parties or third parties? We think about this seriously. So model for AI usage, extreme one, Robo arbitrators issue Arbitrator award. It is possible that the result of such arbitration may not be persuasive to an interested party in our current times, but we don't know how attitudes may change in the future. The moderate scenario is whether AI assists in settlement and negotiation. I expect this model of use will become a reality in the very few near future. The light one, we can imagine easily, is one in which AI would be used to collect and exchange data with other jurisdictions, arbitrary institutions, academics, and other stakeholders. Even for the light model, some work will still need to be done. In particular, we need to develop an online dispute resolution, arbitration, standard platform, de facto platform, which can be used globally, as Ronald also mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I would love to ask you a couple of more follow-up questions, but since we are really running out of time, so maybe we can move on to Warathon. So Warathon, so what's happening in Thailand? Would you be able to introduce some of the elements, the recent developments happening in Thailand?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So let's hear something about Thailand. First of all, I have to say that normally lawyer is not to be like the expert on technology, and AI in Thailand is still like a newborn, I would say, and just start to like develop in our country. So let's hear something about the background, and then I come up with like the AI in arbitration in Thailand. Thailand was ranked number 56 in AI Readiness Index in 2019. That say that we are in like the start that era to become like the digital age for our country. Thailand was like the world number one for use of social media and mobile payment. This survey by PwC. But for myself, I have like we call the direct witness, because when I come home every night, I will find the curly box my wife purchased online every night. So it can confirm that we are like in the state that like online payment and online buying is like going up in Thailand. And out of like 69 million people population, there was like I think 57 million internet users in Thailand. And Thailand spent like the longest hour online in the world from the research, average like 9 hours and 38 like minutes online per day. You can see the Thai people like can have the Facebook, Instagram all the way. That's the background of the technology and AI. From the government sector establishment of the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society to aim that our government will like boost the Thailand to be the Thailand Profile Zero digital age. And also we establishment of like the digital government development agency. We also have like delivered the public service to the use of data side and analytic use of big data, especially for the farmer. Now we do the big data collection for the climate elemental data, then we can provide this information to our farmer. That was one of like the highest like industry in Thailand. And also recently, this is quite hot among Thai legal market because the government enacts we call data privacy law, or we call personal data protection law. So we adopt the GDPR concept, and also we have like the security laws about data. That's the background from the government side. And in the from my research for the public for use of AI in legal compliance. From the government side, AI used to detect the cyber security threats in Thailand. And also we have the establishment of cyber security team and digital team, forensic team to prevent any target cyber threat. And recently, we also, the government side agency to have like the draft AI ethic guideline for our country. That's the starter point from our AI environment in Thailand. To focus on the use of AI in court or in arbitration in local Thai market, like all my colleagues here mentioned, this is a starting point, not in the end step that we will have a robot arbitrator or robot judge. I came from the X generation, so still remember of the fax machine. The first day of my career, I have to like fax a lot of report to the client, and never imagine that we will come to the age of today that like every like lawyer have like email in the mobile phone, even you are on the vacation, so any client or colleague can contact you. And also another example for the due diligence. If anyone in this room may remember, if you are the generation X or more than that, when you did the discovery or you do the due diligence for the client to like review or document. In my age, like back like 15 years ago, we will think about going into the data room, sitting, reviewing the box of the files, eating Pepsi Cola potato chip from like 8 a.m. until like 9 p.m. every day and doing the report. But today I think it's more the technology and learning machine can help us. You can put like all the paper information feed in the PDF, and you can like now they have some software maybe developed to be the AI to like tag some wording that you would like to find from the paper, from the court file. That would be more easier for you to do the work, like I mentioned. The possible assistance for AI in the court or in the arbitration. For example, in the past, in the Thai court, they will not allow for the mobile phone or the computer in the courtroom. The reason is that we quite afraid that the lawyer or the person in the courtroom will record without approval for the judge, like the witness, testimony. But nowadays, I think the court quite more like flexible about that. I can use AI for my court examination in the courtroom now. And also, the possible assistance for the AI in the legal market in Thailand. The first one about the legal research. For my generation, we still use the library. The junior lawyer have to go to a library, like read all the things just for one case set from like 100 books. But now I think we have like kind of like big data for the Supreme Court precedent. So it's easy for our junior lawyer now, easier for my age to like find the court precedent easier than I. That would be in the future maybe much easier because maybe they can analyze the precedent case of the Thai court and then compare to our situation and can give us the likelihood of success of the case in the future maybe. And also they can do the precedent comparison. It means that compare the precedent in the past and to our case and can give us the feedback. That's another thing that it can be happen. Generally, I would to say that in Thailand, we are like arbitration is international, so we cannot be left like behind. So I think we in our country we try to develop the AI environment to like promote in both maybe in the court system and also in arbitration, especially for the law firm. I think now we discussed about like the creation of the implementation of the smart legal contract. The smart legal contract is about the contract that can like quoting, put all obligation of both parties, and then they can execute by themselves. For example, you are quoting the contract for the selling and buying some goods, and then you can like quoting that if the obligation met, then the payment will made automatically, something like that. And I think among our local and international law firm in Thailand, we now thinking about like we have set out a digital team to help and support our client, not only for Herbert Smith Freehills, but other law firms will do as well. In summary, I think for the Thailand for the AI in use in arbitration or in legal market, we are in the first stage to develop. But we hope as the AI will be one of the technology and machine to help the lawyer to do the job. But in the future, we're not sure, and no one can say that maybe the AI is not just only the machine, but they will become to replace the lawyer. So if the lawyer would like to still in-pace, so we have to like think something that we can like have like really unique ability to analyze or do something that the AI cannot replace that. That I would say in summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, wow, so we did that quite quickly. So now we have some time left, so maybe I'll just go back to, yes, ask some follow-up questions. Marathon, so in your opinion, what is the trend for international arbitration, arbitration in Thailand involving AI? And can you share some of your personal experience?
I think arbitration is like now international. So Thailand have to follow the international arbitration environment. From my experience, when I was like quite younger than this, the first time I attend international arbitration, we saw like for example, in Thailand, like 15 years ago, when you go to the court or go to the arbitration, you will see like we call the recorder. The witness will testify, and then the judge will record. And the secretary of the judge or the assistant of the judge will type the witness statement. But the first time I saw in Hong Kong, like back like 15 years ago, you have like transcription on, we call immediately the witness say, and you have like witness like testimonial put in the screen. I think so the same analogy that if in the real international among like the region have like put the AI to help like the lawyer, for example, e-recovery or e-submission, or maybe in the future more than that to help like in like make a analytical of the issue. I think the Thailand will follow that as well because we have to adopt and develop our fundamental, because international arbitration is quite international, so we have to like follow up and speed up to at the same pace of like our like friend country in our region, that I would say.
Yes, indeed. Very interesting. Thank you very much. And Mr. Abe Sensei, I just saw you being so relaxed and thought I wouldn't be asking you any questions, but the final question is for you. So my follow-up question on your presentation is that what do you think is, what kind of system or mechanism is the most important thing to introduce robo arbitration in our society, in your opinion?
Okay, think about robo arbitrator. Do you think we need 3 robo arbitrators from every party? No. But how about Chinese take 1 robo arbitrator, Thailand take robo arbitrators, and 2 robo arbitrators choose another robo arbitrators? Different decision? We don't think so. I believe so, everyone. This means that robo arbitrators should be not manipulated and treated be fairly. And we have to trust before we use robo trust. And what situation we can use robo arbitrators? For the cross-border small amount like Amazon, Alipay, such a kind of consumer type, it is okay. This is fair, cheap, and very efficient. But how about complicated matters? Complicated matters, as Robert told Richard Scotland. I can also mention Tomorrow's Lawyer. Tomorrow's Lawyer, inside Tomorrow's Lawyer, the author said 70% of the cases will be done by AI. He foretold 15 years ago, and probably it is the case in the very near future. And the 30% is a very complicated one. Complicated one should be, we think, made by human arbitrators. Don't you think so? So I put the arbitration extreme or moderate or light. So extreme case for the cross-border assembly amount, and the moderate or light case for the very complicated, we need human arbitrators just assisted by the robo arbitrator system or AI. I think so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The idea of having 2 robots selecting the chair robot arbitrator is very interesting, and at the same time giving us a lot of food for thought. Thank you so much for sharing your insightful presentation. It was extremely informative and also exciting, and I have no doubt that it gave you some opportunity to have a glance of what to expect in the future. Would you be joining me in thanking the panelists and also giving them a round of applause?